While other kids raced through life chasing laughs and games, 8-year-old Emma collected moments nobody else seemed to notice. She knew exactly when Mr. Thompson, the crossing guard, had a bad morning because his whistle sounded softer. She could tell when Sarah, the lunch lady, was worried about her own children because she'd sneak extra cookies to the kids who looked hungry, and she especially noticed how some people carried sadness like a heavy coat they couldn't take off. But the day she noticed a sad man on a park bench would change not just her life, but the lives of thousands. She didn't know he was Keanu Reeves. She just knew he needed her sandwich. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. But before we start, let me ask, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Emma had always been different from other 8-year-olds. While her classmates rushed through life in a blur of excitement, she noticed the little things, like how the crossing guard's smile didn't reach his eyes today, or how the lunch lady always saved the biggest cookies for the kids who looked hungry. Her teachers called her an old soul, though Emma didn't really understand what that meant. Her mother, Kate, worked at the local diner, making just enough to keep their small apartment warm and food on the table. After Emma's father passed away 2 years ago, life had gotten harder, but Kate had taught Emma something precious. Kindness doesn't cost anything, and sometimes the smallest gestures mean the most. Every evening, Emma would sit at the diner counter, doing her homework while her mom finished her shift. The regulars loved her, often sharing their fries or letting her practice her reading by reciting the daily specials. It wasn't much, but it was their life, and they made it work with love. On the other side of the country, Keanu Reeves was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but a deeper exhaustion that came from years of living in the spotlight. The papers called him the nicest guy in Hollywood. But lately, the weight of always being watched, always being judged, felt heavier than ever. The loss of a close friend had hit him hard, though he kept that pain private. The endless questions, the constant scrutiny, the way people seemed to forget he was human, it all became too much. He needed to remember who he was beyond the cameras and scripts. After finishing his latest movie, Keanu did something unusual. No fancy hotels, no luxury retreats. Instead, he packed a small bag, pulled on his most worn-out jacket, and drove to a quiet town where nobody would look twice at a man who wanted to disappear for a while. He found a small park in the middle of town, the kind with creaky swings and benches that had seen better days. Every afternoon, he would sit there, baseball cap pulled low, watching the world go by. No cameras, no autographs, just peace and quiet. Sometimes he'd bring a book, other times he'd just sit, trying to find pieces of himself in the silence. That's where Emma found him one chilly autumn afternoon. She had just left the diner where her mom worked, clutching her favorite after-school snack, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Her mom always cut it into triangles, saying it made the sandwich taste better somehow. It was a small tradition that started with her dad, and they kept it alive in his memory. The man on the bench caught her attention right away. He sat hunched over, his long hair falling forward, hiding his face. His shoes were scuffed, and his coat looked too thin for the cold weather. But what really made Emma pause was the way his shoulders slumped, like they were carrying something heavy nobody could see. She recognized that look. It was the same way her mom sometimes looked when she thought Emma wasn't watching. "Mom," Emma whispered, tugging at her mother's sleeve as they walked past. "That man looks sad." Kate glanced over, her expression softening. She had taught Emma to be careful around strangers, but she'd also taught her to trust her heart. "Sometimes people just need a moment alone, sweetie." But Emma wasn't convinced. She looked down at her sandwich, then back at the man. "Can I give him my sandwich?" "He looks hungry." Kate hesitated, watching her daughter's determined face. She knew money was tight, and another sandwich would have to wait until payday. The diner's owner had been kind enough to let Emma have one free sandwich each day after school, and this was today's. But the look in Emma's eyes told her this mattered. "Okay, honey, but I'm coming with you." Emma approached the bench carefully, her small shoes crunching autumn leaves. The man didn't look up until she was standing right in front of him. His eyes seemed far away, lost in thoughts that made him forget the world around him. "Hi," she said softly. "Would you like my sandwich?" Keanu lifted his head slowly, surprised by the small voice. Through his dark hair and beneath his cap, He looked at the little girl holding out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. For a moment, he just stared, thrown off by such a simple act of kindness. "It's peanut butter and jelly," Emma added helpfully. "Mom cuts it in triangles. It makes it taste better." She paused, then added with the wisdom only children possess. "My dad used to say food tastes better when you share it. He's in heaven now, but I think he was right." A smile crept across Keanu's face, not the practiced smile he used for cameras, but a real one that reached his tired eyes. "That's very kind of you," he said softly. "But don't you need it?" Emma shook her head. "You look like you need it more. Sometimes when I'm sad, food helps. And everyone needs a friend sometimes, even if it's just for a sandwich." Keanu accepted the sandwich with gentle hands, touched by the wisdom in her young voice. "Thank you. I'm Keanu." "I'm Emma," she replied, rocking on her heels. "Do you want to hear a joke? My dad used to say jokes make everything better." Before he could answer, Emma launched into her favorite joke. "What did the peanut butter say to the jelly? We're meant to spread happiness." Keanu laughed, a genuine, heartfelt laugh that seemed to surprise even him. It had been weeks since he'd laughed like that. Something about Emma's innocent kindness had cracked through the walls he'd built around himself. Kate watched from a few steps away, smiling at her daughter's natural ability to brighten someone's day. She hadn't recognized Keanu Reeves under the cap and scruff, seeing only someone who needed kindness. In that moment, he wasn't a movie star. He was just a person having a rough day. Emma chatted with Keanu for a few more minutes, telling him about her day at school and how she helped her mom at the diner. She didn't notice how his eyes grew warmer with each word, or how his posture straightened slightly, as if her presence was helping him remember something he'd forgotten. The next morning, Emma and her mom were surprised to find a man in a suit waiting outside their diner. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Mr. Reeves would like to invite you both to breakfast." Emma's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Mom, the sandwich man is Keanu Reeves." At a quiet table in the back of the diner, Keanu sat with Emma and Kate, no disguise this time. He told them how he'd been feeling lost, overwhelmed by the world, when Emma's simple act of kindness reminded him what really mattered. "Your daughter," he told Kate, "has an amazing heart. She saw someone who needed kindness, not a celebrity who needed space. That means more than you know." He explained how he'd lost a close friend recently and how the world had started to feel cold and distant until Emma shared her sandwich. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "I want to help, the way Emma helped me." Inside was a check that would cover Emma's college education and help Kate buy the small cafe she'd always dreamed of owning. "Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes," he said, echoing the wisdom Emma had shown him. But Keanu wasn't finished. Inspired by Emma's kindness, he established the Triangle Sandwich Foundation, named after the way Kate cut Emma's sandwiches. The foundation helped single parents open small businesses and provided meals for children in need. It became his way of spreading the kindness that Emma had shown him. Years later, the little cafe on the corner became famous for its peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, always cut into triangles. Kate named it Emma's Place, and on the wall hung a framed photo of Emma and Keanu sharing a sandwich, and beneath it, a simple message. Kindness, like a sandwich, is best when shared. Emma grew up understanding that her small act of kindness had created ripples she never expected. The foundation helped thousands of families, and every year, Keanu would visit the cafe, sitting at the same table, ordering the same sandwich. When people asked Emma why she gave her sandwich to a stranger that day, she would smile and say, "I didn't see a stranger. I just saw someone who looked like they needed a friend. Sometimes that's all any of us needs." The story spread, inspiring others to perform their own acts of kindness. People began leaving prepaid sandwiches at cafes for those who couldn't afford them. The triangle sandwich movement became a symbol of how small gestures could make big changes. Keanu never forgot the little girl who shared her sandwich when he needed kindness most. In interviews, when asked about his biggest inspiration, he would talk about Emma and her peanut butter and jelly sandwich, cut into triangles by a mom who taught her daughter that kindness matters more than money. Emma's Place became more than just a cafe. It became a symbol of hope. Every morning, Kate would make extra sandwiches for anyone who couldn't afford a meal. The Triangle Sandwich Foundation expanded to help families across the country, always remembering that it started with one little girl's decision to share her sandwich with a sad stranger. And in the little cafe on the corner, every sandwich was served with a note: "Spread happiness just like peanut butter and jelly." The note included Emma's favorite joke, reminding everyone that sometimes laughter and kindness are the best medicine of all. Emma's simple act of sharing her sandwich had done more than feed a hungry soul. It had reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest gestures can create the biggest changes, and that true kindness doesn't see fame or fortune, it just sees a person in need. In a world that often feels too busy and too cold, her story became a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, one sandwich at a time.